What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again today for another playoff series preview. Never thought I'd see the day, but here we are. The last time the Buffalo Sabres made the playoffs was in 2011. I was 6 years old. Yes, I would turn 7 later that year. And my brother was not alive yet. Here we are, 15 years later, and the Buffalo Sabres have finally made it back to the playoffs. Not only that, they won their division, had 50 wins, and had over 100 points. Lindy Ruff coached this team back to relevance, and he was also their coach when they made the playoffs last. 50 wins, 23 losses, 9 overtime losses, 109 points for the Atlantic first number 1 seed. First in the Atlantic, second in the East, fourth in the entire league. Phenomenal. And this was a team that was left for dead early on. I went to a game in Buffalo earlier this season where they played Colorado, and they just looked awful. They just looked awful, and like the first 25 games of the season, they had a losing record. Kevin Adams gets fired, Kakalainen comes in, and even before they fired Adams, they started to turn it around. I think they'd won 3 in a row prior to that. And everything just started clicking like magic. Boston, wildcard 1, find themselves back in the playoffs after a year out, led by first-year head coach Marco Sturm, who's really changed this team around and has done a really good job of it. 45, 27, and 10, 100 points. 4th in the Atlantic, 7th in the East, 8th in the league. Yes, a wildcard 1 is 8th in the league. Goals for Buffalo, 288, which is 5th. Goals against, 241, which is 7th. That's a plus 47 goal differential. Power play, 19.5%, 20th in the league. PK, 81.9%. That's 4th in the league. Goals for Boston, 272, which is 12th. Goals against, 250, which is 14th. Power play, 23.4%, which is 9th. PK, 76.9%, which is 24th. Plus 22 goal differential, if I didn't mention that. What this team is really Pastrnak and his merry men. I heard your urinating tree use that phrase earlier, and I thought that was a really good way to put it. We'll get to that. First, we'll start with Buffalo's top guys. Thompson, 81 games played, and another outstanding season out of Tage Thompson. 40 goals, 41 assists, 81 points. Rasmus Dahlin, 77 games, 19 goals, 55 assists, 74 points. I would not be shocked if he's top 3 in Norris voting this year, or top 3 in Norris voting next year, or the winner of a Norris going in the near future. He's been everything and more. I mean, I think it's going to be Werenski this year, and Makar would probably get the follow-up vote. Quinn Hughes is probably going to be in the running next year as well. Those are the top 4 defensemen in the league, and if you add Lane Hudson into that, because he's taken that next step forward, we're in a prime of NHL defensemen right now. Alex Tuch, 79 games played, 33 goals, 33 assists, 66 points. Will he be sticking around in Buffalo will be the question following this year's playoffs. Ryan McLeod, that trade with Edmonton looks better every single day. 81 games played, 14 goals, 40 assists, 54 points. Josh Doan, 82 games played, 25 goals, 27 assists, 52 points. I'd say it's a win-win trade, the deal with Peterka and Doan, and then Kesselring also into Buffalo. Then Jack Quinn, what a year for him. 82 games, 20 goals, 31 assists, 51 points. Kind of flew a bit under the radar. Then Boston, it starts and ends with David Pastrnak. 77 games played, not 29 goals, 71 assists, 100 points for Pastrnak. Morgan Geekie, 81 games played, so close to 40 goals. We saw him start to come out of his shell in Boston last year, and he had trips in Carolina and Seattle before this, but it's been Boston where he's really hit his stride. 39 goals, 29 assists, 68 points. Pavel Zacha, 78 games played, or 78 games played, 30 goals, so that's something for Zacha. 35 assists, 65 points. McAvoy, 69 games played, 11 goals, 50 assists, 61 points. Would definitely be around the 70, 75 point range that he played the full year. And then Victor Arvidsson reviving his career in Boston as well. 69 games played, 25 goals, 29 assists, 54 points. You assume if he played the full season, he would have been right around 30 goals and around 35 assists. So overall, a great season out of Arvidsson from what you expected. But it was more of a cap dump for Edmonton. Goaltending. Lyon is hurt to start the series, so we'll go to Luukkonen first. 35 games played, 22-9-3 record with a 2.52 goals against average and a 910 save percentage. He's finally developed into that number 1 starting goaltender. The issue is he hasn't been that number 1. They've kind of split the net because Alex Lyon is a strange goaltender. He'll go places and he'll play really, really well for a certain amount of time, and then he'll find himself leaving town because that team either finds another goalie or just for one reason whatsoever. That happened in Detroit, Buffalo now, and there's other places as well. I mean, he was in Philadelphia, I believe, at some point as well. But 36 games played, 20-10-4 record. If they're in the second round, that means the Luukkonen's probably got the start anyway, so he'll be a reliable backup option. 2.77 goals against average and a .907 save percentage. For Boston, it's all Jeremy Swayman, although Korpisalo is there if they need a backup. I didn't put him on the board. 55 games for Swayman, 31-18-4, 2.71 goals against average and a .908 save percentage. We've seen Swayman make sure Boston wins games in the playoffs before. We've also seen him lose games in the playoffs before. So which kind of version of Swayman are we going to get? I don't know yet. I mean, we'll find out relatively soon, I think. Moving on to their head-to-head record this season. 3-1 Boston in Boston for their first meeting. 4-3 in overtime for Boston in Boston for their second meeting. Buffalo gets one in Buffalo, 4-1 to make it a 2-1 series, but then Boston wins in overtime 4-3 in Buffalo, so they have the 3-1 series lead during the 3-1 series win during the regular season. These teams both didn't make the playoffs last year, so we'll just go into their playoff history with each other. 1982 in the quarterfinal, back when it was a best of 5 in the first round, Boston wins in 4 games, 3 games to 1. 1983 they meet in the second round. Boston wins that series in 7, 4 games to 3. 1988, in the first round, Boston wins that series in 6, 4 games to 2. 1989, Boston wins the series in the first round, 4 games to 1. You can see Buffalo didn't like Boston very much. And it didn't end it because in 1992, Boston wins in 7 in the first round again as well. Thing is, after Boston beat Buffalo, they'd usually go against Montreal. And while in the early 80s, mostly early to mid 80s, and a little bit of the late 80s and early 90s, they'd play Montreal and lose. 88 and 90, they ended up beating Montreal, and I think there was another year in there they did that as well. But yeah, 1992, Boston wins again in 7, and that's 5 consecutive series that Boston wins. 1993 is a big deal. You probably have seen the Brad May Day goal, the Rick Jenneret call. That's because Buffalo swept Boston, the favored Boston Bruins, in 4 straight in 1993. And Game 4 was an OT winner off Brad May, hence May Day, that iconic call. 1999, they follow that up with Buffalo goes on a run to the Stanley Cup Final, and they beat Boston in 6 games in the second round on their way there. The most recent meeting between these two teams was in 2010, where in the first round, Buffalo was the higher seed, Boston was the 6th seed. However, they do end up taking Buffalo out in 6 games in that series. And then for Buffalo, their most recent playoff appearance, where they lost to Philly in 7 games. They had a 3-2 series lead, by the way. But that was the last time they were in the playoffs, so this is a completely different team since they last made. There's hardly anyone in the NHL left from when they made the playoffs, or anyone that was on that team. Tyler Myers, probably the only guy that's still on the team, because Tyler Ennis, I think, retired. And, yeah, so it's going to be a very fun series, I think, to say the least. And I don't usually say that about Boston, but Buffalo, Boston, they have a history with each other. Traditional rivals. Should be a very good series. I'm going to take, for my prediction, Buffalo in 7 games. I think that Boston has they have a lot more experience. But Buffalo just has this aura around them this season that they don't seem like they're going to be denied, and they're going to prove people wrong. How far that's going to take them, we'll see. But it's going to be a fun series, and I'm excited. Probably the second most series. I already mentioned in the last preview how Tampa Bay and Montreal is the most exciting series. Any division with any series with the Atlantic Division is going to be exciting because there's just so much talent, so many good teams in that division. And there's some that didn't even make the playoffs. Like Detroit didn't make the playoffs, and they're a pretty good team. And then you have who missed the playoffs? Florida and Toronto. They had down years. Florida, you expect to jump back in without the injuries next year. Toronto, we don't know what's going to happen, but still you have Austin Matthews, William Nylander, among others in there as well. The best division in the NHL for me, without question. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Let me know down below who you think is going to win this series, and are you happy for Buffalo if they finally got back to the playoffs? I personally am. It's nice to see some different teams in the playoffs, especially one who you haven't seen since you were under the age of 10. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.